Hello there, True Ranish Whiskey Lore, and time for another whiskey tasting. We're going to do a tasting from what is the same place but a little bit different. The picture has not moved, but the table and the chairs and everything have kind of moved around. And now I have a microphone and setting this up as a professional studio at this point. So my hope is to do interviews down here at some point, but unfortunately, all the dongles and specific wires I need and ports in my computer are not matching up to be able to do those interviews from this spot quite yet. But you guys will actually get to watch my tasting videos from this location from this point on. So I'm excited about that and excited about some whiskey that I have to do some tasting on today. Something that came to me just a little while ago, and I was so excited I opened it up and decided to go in and start doing some tastings. And this is Jeptha Creed. This is a distillery in Shelbyville, Kentucky. I have to remember Kentucky, not Tennessee, because Shelbyville, Tennessee would be uncle nearest. So Jeptha Creed, it's a mother-daughter combo that started this real family affair here. They started the distillery back in 2016. When I did my Experience in Kentucky Bourbon book, I went to the distillery. I will say that my first experience there on the tour was great. I loved the tour. But the thing that was kind of like, okay, oh no, was the whiskey, because they were still a new distillery. There wasn't anything in there really over, 2 years maybe. And I think most of it was probably less than that when I was doing the tasting there. So I was a little semi-disappointed walking out, but not kind of encouraged for the future is how I'll put that. And so when the rep reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to learn more about Jeptha Creed? I said, I know about Jeptha Creed. Okay, I've got that background. But what I'd really like to do is see where the whiskey has gone over the years. And so that is what we're going to do today. I am going to be doing a tasting of their red, white, and blue, which is a 4-year-old aged whiskey. It is not bottled in bond. The one that we will taste in the future will be bottled in bond, but this one is not. But it is 4 years old, and it follows some of the other rules besides the government bonded warehouse, in that it is aged for 4 years and it is 50% ABV. Now, to do a tasting on this particular whiskey, I first want to kind of give you a breakdown of what it has in it, because this red, white, and blue name has some significance. And when I read the mash bill on this, I actually got very excited, because not only does this contain 3 different types of corn, but it also contains malted rye and malted barley. And anything that I've had that has had malted rye in it has been complex, has a nice mouthfeel to it. And so I'm really looking forward to diving in and doing a tasting on this. It is 25% Bloody Butcher corn. Now, Bloody Butcher corn, if you know anything about Jeptha Creed, that's pretty much where all of this started, with them growing Bloody Butcher corn on their farm and then incorporating it into their whiskey. And what I liked about that experience was, this was 2019. I was still fresh into bourbon, really didn't know a whole lot about it, and it added that extra dimension that said, all of these distilleries are focusing on something a little bit different. And this is the first one where I had seen them using an heirloom variety of corn and trying to bring it back. And because it was a variety that had disappeared for some time. Its origins go back to the 1840s in Virginia. And in fact, I was trying to find out where it got its name, Bloody Butcher corn, because it's a really unique name, sort of aggressive name. Where would that come from? And it's from the idea that when they saw this corn, and this could be lore, but this is what I read, was that it reminded them of a butcher's apron. And so it was that blood red that they were seeing. And so that's where Bloody Butcher corn got its name. All right. Don't hold me to that because, of course, I try to dispel as much of these bits of lore as much as I can, but that is one of those that I have not checked into other than seeing that somebody said that that's where the name came from. It's actually and this, I guess this happens a lot with some of these unique heirloom varieties of corn. It's very easy for them to crossbreed and then sort of lose the heart of what they are. So it's something where you can't be growing a bunch of different styles of corn, different types of corn in the same field, or the wind will pick up and suddenly cross pollination, and you have some of these more pure varieties starting to disappear over time. So that seems to be the story with Bloody Butcher. So 25% Bloody Butcher corn, 25% of a heirloom variety of white corn, and then, of course, if it's red, white, and blue, we're going to have blue corn. My only experience with blue corn up to this point has been in Texas with Balcones Baby Blue, which I really do like that for a 1-year whiskey. Nice mouthfeel and a nice drinking whiskey. So those things have me intrigued, on top of the 20% malted rye that is in here. And what makes that extra special to me at this point is that I was going through doing some of my old research on how they used to make whiskey. Maybe very possible that Old Crow back in the day, one of the secret ingredients was them using malted rye, because the way that they would make whiskey back then, they would basically create their mash, and then what they would do is, if you've ever seen this, and if you haven't seen this, I think the only place I've seen it is at Moonshine University, where once they add the malted barley in, it liquefies. All of a sudden, this oatmeal liquefies, and it's fun to watch that, and that's from the malting of that grain. So what they also used to do back in the old days is that they would add a little bit of malted barley, but they would also add some malted rye. And it's very possible that the old version of Old Crow once was made with malted rye. So fun seeing that now in a current recipe. All right, 4 years old, Kentucky bourbon. And on the nose, this whiskey, sometimes I will pull a bourbon to my nose and I'll just go, okay, here it comes. Because I'm like, I am just ready for caramel, vanilla, and oak. Yeah, there it is, staple bourbon. That's what it's going to be. That's not this. This actually is it reminds me of cinnamon toast, actually. Yes, it is cinnamon toast with a little bit of an oak note coming through as well. Maybe underneath, I'm getting a little bit of that toffee, but just a little bit. It is really a nice baking cinnamon smell. Cheers. The sweetness you expect is there, and the caramel is there, but again, I'm getting that cinnamon throughout. And actually, it's coming into the finish as well, and I'm getting little chocolate notes in there as well. And also sensing a little bit of that rye, just a little bit of that rye spice coming in. But it's blending so nicely with the oak notes that it's kind of like what I would call wood spice. There is that rye spice, but it is blending very nicely with the nutty oak notes that I'm getting in there. A little bit of grain left on the palate. What I find interesting about this whiskey is that a lot of times you'll experience a lot on the nose, you might experience a lot on the palate, but when you get to the finish, it either dissipates or, it's like the show is over. And I love a finish that really has a lot of stuff going on, because if you think about it, And you'll see me when I'm doing these videos that I will pause and I'll sit there, but then my brain is going, you can't hold this in your mouth forever. People want to hear what your thoughts are. But it's like those flavors, if there's a lot on the palate, your brain is like clicking through all of them, trying to discover them and mark them so that once you swallow, because you can't talk while you got all this liquid in your mouth, and then you forget stuff as at that point. What's fun about this whiskey is, and anything where the finish lingers for some time or even evolves, which this one does tend to evolve as well, is that now you're in a position where you can talk. So it's like, oh man, I'm tasting this, I'm tasting this, I'm tasting that. And so it's a lot harder to forget as you go along on a tasting with a whiskey like this. So a little bit of Kentucky hug comes through on this whiskey as well. It's got a lot of corn in it, so it's probably going to come from that and the combination with the rye. But I am very impressed with the direction of this whiskey, and I will say that in a way, I would almost worry if they started to age this much further than where it's aged right now, because I would think that all they can do is cover up that cinnamon over time, and that cinnamon right now for me is the star of the show on this particular whiskey. So I hope you enjoyed this video. By the way, if you want to support the show, you can do so out at patreon.com/whiskeylore. Lots of extra content out there. All the video interviews that used to be here are now going to be out there. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to watch more of these down the road. And until next time, cheers and Slainte. I like that cinnamon.